Warning, the video you're about to watch contains mathematics at the level of college algebra and trigonometry. All material has an assumed prerequisite of both Algebra 1, which is elementary algebra, and Algebra 2, which is intermediate algebra. While some prerequisite topics are reviewed briefly, a more thorough review of these entrance topics can be found by searching the web.
It's the system of equations. We must deal with them all at once. Always looking for solutions. Positive outlook overcomes.
Hello, my name is Roy Simpson, professor of mathematics at Cosumnes River College in Sacramento, California. In this video, we continue our conversation about complex numbers. You've just learned that I is defined to be the square root of -1. Now we're going to talk about how can you visualize complex numbers on a plane. It's like snakes on a plane, but it's complex numbers on a plane. If you don't get that joke, it's an old movie. Anyhow, plotting a complex number on a complex plane or on the complex plane, we first need to define what is the complex plane. Well, the complex plane looks much like the Cartesian coordinate system, but instead of an x and a y axis representing real numbers, the horizontal axis represents real numbers, but the vertical axis represents imaginary numbers. Let me go ahead and showcase this. So what you're seeing right here is the real and imaginary axes. They are perpendicular to one another, just like the x-axis is perpendicular to the y-axis. So very familiar, it should seem that way. But what we're going to do to plot a complex number is we're going to treat the real number as the x value and the imaginary part as the y value. Let me say that again. So let's suppose that you're given a complex number, and by the way, when you're dealing with complex numbers, we use the variable z to denote the complex numbers. So z is equal to, let's say, 3 minus 2i. Let's just say that's the complex number we're looking at. So the real part of that is 3. The imaginary part is -2, and that's it, right? The imaginary part does not include I. The imaginary part is the coefficient of I. So the real part is 3. The imaginary part is -2. The complex number is 3 minus 2i. To plot that point in two-dimensional space on the complex plane, we'd go over 3 units in the real direction. Now that's our real axis, the horizontal axis is. So 1, 2, 3 units over in the real direction, and then we go 2 units down in the imaginary direction, 1, 2, and we'd plot the point 3 minus 2i. Very fast and easy. It's very familiar. It should seem very nice to you. And you could do this with any complex number. So you can plot all the complex numbers you want on a single complex plane. For an example, we can graph the complex numbers from our example in the previous video. Let me hop back to that just to show you. In the previous video, we dealt with the two complex numbers, -3/2 plus 4i and -3/2 minus 4i. Using a better notation, I'm going to go ahead and say that z sub 1 is equal to -3/2 plus 4i, and z sub 2 will be the second complex number, -3/2 minus 4i. And we're asked to plot those on the complex number system, or the complex plane. So here we are, the complex plane here, and we want -3/2 plus 4i and -3/2 minus 4i. First of all, the real part of that is -3/2. So let's go back 1, that's -1 right there. Well, if that's -1, that's -2. So -3/2 is right about there. And now we're going to go up and down in the imaginary direction 4 units. Let me go ahead and mark that out. So I probably didn't do the best spacing there, but there you go. We have gone up and down by 4 units in the vertical direction, which is the imaginary direction. And let's go ahead and plot -3/2 plus 4i. And then we're also going to plot -3/2 minus 4i. That's down here. And that's it. That's all we need to do. That shouldn't be too crazy for you to kind of grab onto that. And that's what we're going to go ahead and finish this video out with. That's how you plot complex numbers on a complex plane. In the next video, we'll start doing arithmetic with complex numbers.
It's the system of equations. We must deal with them all at once. Always looking for solutions. Positive outlook overcomes obstacles getting in our way. Cause affects more than we can sometimes see. Things for what they are and work together until you feel at peace. Says, listen close, don't talk too much that isn't kosher. You may really hurt inside. It doesn't justify you to speak too loud and cry.